Hello, beloved. Today we're going to turn to the book of Haggai. Thank you for being with us thus far in the It's Jesus Revival, taking one book of the Bible at a time. The book of Haggai was written by Prophet Haggai. He's one of the post-exile prophets, I call him, because this book showed up immediately after God's people returned from Babylon, the Babylonian exile. And when the people returned back from Babylon, they started rebuilding their lives, started rebuilding their homes, and they started rebuilding their business. But get what? They neglected the house of God. So God raised Prophet Haggai to call his people back on track to build my house. So that's why the 2-chapter book focuses on God calling them to prioritize him, because the people had become so comfortable. They were saying, it is not time to rebuild the Lord's temple. But God asked, is it time for you to build yourself paddle houses while the house of God lies in ruin in Haggai 1:4? So they were planting much, but they were harvesting little. They were handing money, but it sounds like they were putting their money back in bags that has holes. So their effort weren't producing fruit because they had put God second. So Haggai declared, he said, consider your ways in Haggai 1:5. So guess what? The people listened. Zerubbabel, who was the governor by then, Joshua, who was the high priest by then, and along all the people, they obeyed God. And they began rebuilding the temple. And when they did, this is what God said, I am with you, in Haggai 1:13. And also in chapter 2, you see, God's promise of glory showed up. And peace, as they built, some of them were discouraged. And the temple didn't look as grand as Solomon's temple, but God encouraged them. He says, be strong and work. They said, for I'm with you, says the Almighty God in Haggai 2:4. Then what happened? We saw the glorious promise, that the glory of this latter house shall be greater than the former house. You might have heard that song or those things before, but the Lord of hosts, he said he'll give us peace. So God he was reminding them that it is not about the building appearance, but it's about his presence. Because when God is in it, even the smaller things become greater. So the meaning and key thing about this message and the book of Haggai is it's all about prioritizing God. It asks who comes first in your life. And this is a question to you. Is it God or yourself? So Haggai teaches that when we put God first, he blesses the rest. And when we neglect him, our effort becomes empty. So the lessons for Christians living today is that he said, put God first before your plans, before your business, before your comfort, and make room for him in everything. And second is that obedience normally unlocks blessings when you obey God. Because the moment the people obey, God said, I am with you. And thirdly, you don't have to despise small beginning. What may look great today can carry greater glory tomorrow. What may look small today can be something very great. And also, God's presence is the true glory, not the building, not the crowd, but the presence of God. It makes the difference in your life. When God is first, everything else falls in place. So, beloved, Haggai's message is simple, but it's urgent. It is time for you to rebuild the temple of God. It is time for you to rebuild your life. It is time for you to rebuild your faith. It is time for you to rebuild your commitment to God's work. It is time for you to leave everything first and seek God, because your heart is in ruin and it's time to return back to God. Because when we make space for God, he fills in with glory, and that the glory of the latter house shall be greater than the former house in Haggai. Many of us are amassing wealth for ourselves, are amassing fame for ourselves, are amassing so much for ourselves. But sometimes we don't have time to make God our priority. When you make God your priority, all those other things comes into play. Your health, your money, everything. You just try that and prove me if I'm wrong. God bless you. And this is all we make time for the book of Haggai. We're completing the book of the Minor Prophets.